Today. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on tonight. I am like super excited about this panel of ladies. I cannot tell you how excited I am. But first, I want to tell you who I am. I'm Lakeisha Mosley. I am your racial disruptor. I am the event producer, your chaos coordinator of the LM experience. I am the chief blogger at LakeishaMosley.com, as well as podcast host at Convo with Keisha. So before we get started, I want to take a moment and I want to have you all share our broadcast before I introduce my lovely panel. So just do us a favor, take a quick moment and share this broadcast for us. Ladies, I'm going to share it to my page so that you all will be able to do the same. Give me 1 second. And I know everybody's excited to get this conference started. So let's see if Facebook will cooperate with me. Okay, I just shared it, ladies. So you may be able to, you should be able to see it now. Let's see. Okay, and then Ayana, I am going to share it with you.
Okay.
There we go.
Oh, I see it. I got it. Awesome.
Okay. So before we get started, I want to take a quick moment of silence for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, all of those fallen people. Just a moment of silence for them, please. Thank you all so much. So I'm so excited about this panel, y'all. Like, I'm just goofy. I am cheesing. These ladies are like phenomenal. Like, y'all just don't know how amazing they are. So I just want to introduce Tiffany. Tiffany is the president of influence management at Sway Group, which is an influencer community that helps members build strong and mutually beneficial connections with brands. And quite honestly, I've gotten my biggest deals from Sway Group. So I am definitely loving everything that she does. Before Sway, she founded Blogging Bootcamp and The Stitch Girl in 2008 to create a community and educational opportunities for both budding and established influencers. She's been featured in the New York Times, CBS, Huffington Post, ABC News, Media Post, and Today's Leading Woman. Ayana Angel is the founder of Mazing Media, a podcast production company and host of the personal growth podcast, Switch, Pivot, or Quit, which I absolutely love as well. The title alone, y'all, is like bomb. She's also a published author and a speaker who has a proven track record of success and dedication to her craft. She's been invited to speak at companies and conferences including Google, Spotify, Create and Cultivate, Tech Inclusion, and this week we will see her if you're there at the Podcast Global Summit, where she'll be speaking at the Black Podcast, which I cannot wait to hear. Can't wait, Ayana. Miss Kelsey. So I'm gonna tell y'all a story after this, but Kelsey is a business and life coach working with Fortune 500 companies like Facebook and Twitter, industry thought leaders like Marie Forleo and her B schoolers, as well as celebrity nutritionists, coaches, and other brilliant humans. She's featured in places like Forbes, Insider, Huffington Post, Live Strong, Healthy Living, RunConrad.com, and more. And I'm a huge fan of her podcast, Whiskey and Work podcast. Like, y'all need to check it out. It is so, so good. Next, I have Miss Kenya Kelly. Now, y'all, Kenya is like the TikTok queen, okay? Like, I just sit and just look at her TikToks all the time because she is hilarious. I love them. She's an accomplished business executive, teacher, and an inspirational speaker. She found her voice by writing and speaking about understanding your God given purpose and living up to your fullest potential. She captures her audiences by conveying powerful lessons of overcoming fear, self doubt, divorce to creating successful six-figure businesses utilizing her gifts and corporate background. She is the CEO of Branded. I absolutely love all of these ladies. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for gracing me with y'all presence. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
That was a good introduction.
Right?
Oh, thank you. So, ladies, I got to start it off with the famous question. Does racism exist? So I'll start with you, Kelsey.
I feel like this is a no-brainer answer. So I don't think I can get this wrong because I feel like it absolutely exists and it's out there. I feel like the conversation is, what do people think racism actually is? Does that scare them? Does it resonate with them? Do they see it in their life? Do they see it in their day-to-day interactions with people? For me, that's been the conversation I've been having. But yes, I think it absolutely exists.
Yes. Ayana?
Yeah, I definitely think racism exists. I think we're just in a time now where people are, funny enough, acknowledging that it exists. I think we were in a time before where people knew that it existed, but they didn't want it to exist. So yes, it exists.
Yes. Miss Tiffany?
Yeah, yes, in every industry. I think for me, what I've seen really change recently is people thinking that not being racist was enough. And starting to move towards anti-racism. I know for me, that has been the journey of the last couple months, is that just not being a racist isn't enough. And that isn't going to make the changes that we need. And so I'm hopeful that anti-racism is now what we should be doing.
Right. Ms. Kenya?
Yeah, so absolutely. I think it exists. I think it unfortunately exists in all races. I think that you've got, whether it's white against black, black against white, white against white, Asian against Asian, black against, whatever. And I think that what was happening in the country is forcing a lot of people to have to take a look at themselves, not just white and how they see black people, but if black people are honest, they got to look at themselves too.
Yes. Yes. So I'm going to tell y'all a quick story. Miss Kelsey is like the whole spark for this whole panel. Like, yes. So I told y'all I'm a fan of all these ladies, number one. So I was listening to Kelsey's podcast, and she had Kenya and Ayana on 2 separate podcasts. Y'all got to go back and listen to them. But they were really great, where Kelsey was, and I say brave, Kelsey, I don't think you're not brave at all, but it was just your realness. And I want to have these conversations, and these are 2 ladies that I love and admire and that I support. They support me. I want to have this conversation. And so it was just so breathtaking. It was like I sat in my car during lunch break one day, just like bawling because of the raw authenticity that y'all all 3 shared in those conversations about racism and you trying to understand what it was. And then Tiffany just ended it all for me. Like one day I was in the group and she's really pouring out her heart to us, like of how she feels and what she wants to do. And it was just like, somebody gets it. Like somebody feels what we feel. Like they know that this is all we really want, is just for someone to understand or someone to say, besides us, that it's wrong. That's wrong. So I want to publicly say thank you all to all you ladies, all 4 of you, for the strength, Ayana and Kenya, to say, let's have that conversation and let's be real about it. And no one got out of place. You all, Kelsey asked questions that I thought were like real. Like she really wanted to know, and you all were so patient and loving. So I want to talk to you all about how was that for you? And I'll start with you, Kelsey. Like how did you feel even trying to approach that conversation?
Oh yeah, first I'm just gonna have to say a big thank you to Kenya and Ayana, because I asked a lot of people to have that conversation with me, to be honest, and there are a lot of people that said no, that they said yeah, and understandably, I feel like when things started happening the last few months, it was very traumatic, and absolutely understood that there are people that were like, I am not in a place to get up here, and also didn't want to be put in the position to take on and burden, like be burdened with educating everybody on all of this pain. It was a lot. So I do have to say thank you to you guys for being willing to have that conversation, because I don't think everyone's going to have that conversation, and I don't think that that's wrong. I think everybody is going to come to a place where they're going to figure out how publicly they want to speak about things, how in depth, how, where they are on that journey. So I felt very lucky and grateful that you guys were willing to have the conversation with me. And I just wanted to first educate myself, absolutely. And I also wanted to kind of destigmatize the conversation. I wanted to let other people know that this is very scary, right? Like, there were riots going on right when we were having these conversations. There were so many feelings, like people were passionate and scared and sad. And grieving, and I just wanted to start just crack open the conversation and say, like, there are people that are willing to have the conversation. I feel very passionate about it and also so uneducated about it, right? So kind of like Tiffany was saying, the last few months have been so eye-opening for me, as someone who thought I was, absolutely non-racist and all for Black Lives Matter. And then all of a sudden this happens, and I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm actually doing nothing, and I'm furthering the problem. And that for me was devastating. Like, that for me, I had to have this reckoning and say, okay, now that you are recognizing you're part of the problem, what's your next steps? And my next steps were just have conversations with people that were in a solid enough place to have that at the time. And I reached out to Kenya and Ayana, and you guys were so lovely and wonderful. And yeah, I would encourage people to go listen to not only those podcasts, but other podcasts that you guys have been on, having these conversations. Like, you have really put yourself out there. And I just wanted to start talking about the things that everybody's scared to ask. Everybody's scared to ask these questions. People are scared to talk about, like, the riots and the looting. People are scared to talk about those things. And I felt like if we could have that conversation and put it publicly out there, then maybe it would allow other people to have that conversation in, like, a really positive way, in a positive dialogue.
Yep.
Right. Kenya?
Yeah. I'm sorry, what's the question?
So what was your mindset? I'm sorry. What was your mindset around having the conversation?
Yeah. So I am somebody, I've always had the conversation. I've always been the Black person that white people can go to. I've always positioned myself at that place because, for like my entire life, I have always done this. So, because here's how I think about it. I'm Black, all Black, right? And because I know that I'm all Black and you're white, you have no idea what it's like to be Black, right? And so I don't have to educate you on being Black. However, if I do create a safe space for you, you're going to get answers to questions that you never could have gotten in a history book that you can't get on Google, because you're able to have it through with an actual person. And I've had the craziest conversations with people in my 39 years of living, but I've watched all these people of all different races transform their thinking because I was the one that was willing to have those conversations. I'm the one who was in the bathroom where the HR person would look at me, at my hair, and not know what to say. And finally one day saying, do you want to touch it? And she's like, yes. And like having this whole conversation with her in the bathroom about my hair, because she's white and she don't understand. And I'm like, but if I talk to her about this, now she's educated. And so it's kind of weird to say this, but like when everything went down, I feel like God was like, this is your time. This is your moment. And I'm like, I don't want this to be my moment. I want to retreat. I want to die. And run for my life. He's like, no. I've been grooming you for this moment your entire life. And so now, instead of you doing it privately, now I'm going to use you publicly. And it was odd, because I'm in the heat of like living in a town now where there's 900 Black people and going, oh God. And a white man approaches me in the grocery store about the Ku Klux Klan. And I'm like, what? But because people are very unique, people are just unique, And so to have all that going on, and then Lee Johnson reaching out to asking me to talk about it, I had a moment. I said, wait a minute. I know how to put this emotion here, have this conversation, right? Because my thought was Chalene has millions of people. And if she has 100,000 people to listen to this, if 100,000 people to get educated, and if 100,000 people tell one person, that's 200,000 people. And then the ripple happens, right? And so when Kelsey reached out, I said, if Kelsey has 100,000 people, that's 200,000 people. And I just kept going like, this is my moment. Like I get to answer the BLM, like the BLM org statement versus Black Lives Matter. I get to have the conversation of, hey, that we don't condone looting and riots and all that, but we try to be quiet. And now y'all didn't listen, but now that we acting out, now you're listening, you know, and I don't condone rioting and looting and all that. But I got to talk to people, and I tell you, my inbox has been flooded with white people just repenting. I mean, it was like all these long messages, and I was just like, I can't handle it. You know, I had to eventually say, thank you so much for sharing. That's a whole lot for me, you know, but going like just blessing people. I mean, hundreds of people just like saying, thank you. I didn't know. And so I just felt like, for me, the way that I am and how I've been my whole life, it was like, this was normal for me. I just did it publicly.
Right. And what about you? Because you were like, oh my gosh, you both were so real. Like you could tell that y'all were groomed for this. Like it wasn't a facade. It wasn't something like you just jumped on the bandwagon and said, oh, let me read about it. How was it for you, your messaging around it?
You know what? It's funny because I don't really think that I had any messaging. I think I was just being myself, and I've always just been outspoken. And it's like, if there's certain things that I feel passionate about, and obviously my Blackness is one of them, then I'm just going to talk about it. Right. And I think that for me, I was having a lot of conversations with my girlfriends, guy friends. We were having collective conversations. And so this was just an opportunity to have a conversation with somebody who may not have been privy to the kinds of conversations that I was having in my inner circles, and then just talk about those things in a larger space. So I felt good about it, and I was okay with doing it. And yes, obviously I understand why somebody may not want to, because it can be emotionally taxing. And you do get sort of worked up. But I also felt similar to Kenya in that, like, we've been talking about these things privately. Now is the time to talk about it publicly. If I don't take this opportunity, then what am I really saying? You know what I mean? And it's kind of like that thing of, well, what are you also standing for? Because if you don't take the opportunity when it's laid out there, you know, everybody is listening now, then it's like, how passionate do you really feel about it? How much do you really want to see change? All those things. And I get it that not everybody has a voice that they're willing to use, but those of us who are already using our voices in other capacities, this is your time. You might as well step up. You might as well just, you know, if you have some passion behind it and some knowledge. I'm not saying just get out there and talk just to be talking, but if you have something to say and you have a point of view and you have something that you think other people can benefit from hearing, why not? That's how I sort of look at it. Yeah, exactly.
Tiffany, how was it for you? Because you've always spoken out about this. Like, this wasn't anything new for you, but I know you talked about this awakening. So how was it for you? Like, how did you shape everything?
You know, I think that I've always been doing it in that, you know, I've never been an all lives matter person. I have always wanted to support Black entrepreneur women, especially women, and have spoken with my money when it comes to that. I'm fortunate that I have very close friends that are essentially family that are Black. And so when I see violence against Black people, I see violence against people that I love. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces lacking for a lot of white people who are not grasping this is they don't have that piece. And so I've been really fortunate in that sense. For me, I think I felt like I haven't done enough, and that how did this happen on my watch within my own company, meaning we have an influencer team that I'm in charge of, and we didn't have a Black employee on it. That's unacceptable. How can I go hire for a campaign and get the right Black influencer. I was in another conversation similar to this, and a Black influencer said, the problem is that an influencer, a white person doing the recruiting, will choose a Black person who's like them, who's as close to them as possible, who's as safe as them as possible. And we were missing that piece. And so that one of the first things we did, we hired Chanel, but next was we hired Brittany, who's now on our influencer team. And just, we're going through a huge diversity training. And while it is definitely fueled by making sure that we are trusted by our Black influencers, it's also people with a disability. It's the LGBTQ community. It's all of it. It can't just be white women, right? Like it can't just be, we put a check in the box for diversity. We got someone who's not a white woman. And that to me felt like a failure. And I just, the story that I told in the group about my friend Chanel was, I had been encouraging her. She's a social justice educator. And I had been coming up with all these working, these jobs for her in these companies. I never once offered her to come work for my company because I didn't think I needed it. And oh my gosh, did I need it. And so for me, that was the big revelation of doing the work every day and truly setting up a culture within my home, a culture within my business that I can't know what I don't know. And so I need people that have different experiences and cultures and all of it to point out my blind spots. And that's really where our work has been focused since this all happened. And I'm glad it's happening. I just feel like I keep apologizing for saying it's taken too long and I'm sorry, but we're here now.
Yeah. That's what I loved about when you were so transparent in the group about that. And I think I did a post in there and it got 500 likes, but it was sincere from my heart. I remember being on 2 campaigns at that time. And one campaign, the center of it had spoken out and had pissed off a lot of people. And your team reached out to all of us that was on that campaign and were like, hey, if you can't post right now, we understand. Because as influencers, we have an audience too. And they are looking like, what you doing? What you doing? They looking at us like, what do we do? Because we have a responsibility to our fan base and to our audience for the people that we work with. And so that made me just think even more highly of you because you had your team say, listen, check on these people, make sure that they're good, and it was not just Black influencers on there. It was white influencers on both campaigns. You were like, hold up, if y'all can't post. I mean, y'all were just willing to work with us on that. And I think that means a lot. So I want to pivot there, ladies, and I'll start with you, Tiffany. Do you think that there is pure racism in the influencer market, or is it just an ignorance of just not knowing?
Oh, I mean, obviously there's racism. I think that the brands you have 2 different things happening, right? You have brands that don't care and are being performative allies right now. And they did their Black Lives Matter statement and they hired a couple people. They maybe hired someone in corporate and they're moving on because they checked the box. And then I think you do have brands. I mean, we had brands come back to us and say, we want to see the breakdown. Not only we want to see the breakdown of the diversity on this campaign, we want to see how much everybody was paid. And those are the questions that have to be asked. Fortunately for us, we had no problem turning it over because it wasn't an issue for us. But when brands start to ask that, so it's going to be, the hope is it's going to be a 2-way street, right? We've started saying in our actual sales proposal, there is an expectation of diversity and inclusivity on this campaign, period. So let's get that out of the way now. If that's something that you're not interested in, we need to move on.
Right.
The other piece is that brands are starting to realize, whether it's driven by the pressure of the consumer. I mean, Black consumers are so vital to so many businesses, right? And
Yep.
that's, I think, been a big wake-up call, is that if the brands don't have representation, because representation matters, and the Black community, along with white allies, are saying, no, representation needs to be done here, or we're going to be calling you out. So
Right.
they're responding to that now and making sure that they are doing the right thing. And the pressure is working. I know sometimes on the outside, it probably feels like everybody put up their black square and moved on.
Right.
I do want you to know, on the other side of things, we are seeing a continued interest in it. And I know we're not the only network doing that. I know that Real Clever has taken a very serious stance on it. So it is a industry decision and real commitment. And so again, you know what, you guys, in 6 months, see who's still doing it. That's what I keep saying. We can say all the words, but in 6 months, in a year, who is still doing the work and who is still committed?
Right. What about you, Ayana? What do you think? I mean, you work a lot with lots of brands.
Mm-hmm.
You think they just don't see?
You know what? I think it's a combination. I think it's not just, let me say this. I think it starts before the brand, right?
Okay.
Because people tend to surround themselves and are attracted to people that look like them and feel familiar and feel comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you are somebody who's supposed to be booking for a brand campaign and the standard of beauty is whiteness, you're not going to be looking for a Black woman to appear as the star of a campaign, as one of your highest paid in the campaign. You're just not checking for her, right? Period.
Right.
And what I've been saying for a while is, it's not that, oh, we want you to give us a chance. You know, we want you to look at us and see that we're here, acknowledge us, see our beauty. I'm just going to take it back to a very, very basic example for you. I have felt so awkward before walking into a restaurant where it's nothing but white people in there. And it's a restaurant where, you know, it costs a little bit of money, right? And I got my money. My coins are there. That's why I'm there. But I feel a way because I feel like, looking at you over there, you think that I'm living such a different life than you. And on a common level, people don't even realize that we are living similar lives. But then there are some of us, because of the racism that we've experienced in oppression, who aren't living that life, right? And I think what happens for some people is they then clump everybody into certain categories, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, if I see you over here, I'm thinking that you like the ghetto girl that I saw on TV last week, and you probably can't afford to be in this restaurant that I'm in. You don't realize that I got a whole ass degree, whole ass education, 2-parent home, just like you, and probably doing better than you and more intelligent than you, and got my shit all the way together. You know what I mean? So it starts there, and then you go into a workplace, and then you want to ask the question, why aren't certain people getting picked for certain campaigns and things? It's a more basic level than that. You got to take it more basic. It's not about a campaign at this point. It's about, do you even see me for the person that I am? Would you value me in any circumstance? Forget if you were trying to pay me for a campaign. So I think it goes back to a more basic level. And I think it's just that sometimes people don't even see Black people. White people don't see Black people showing up the same way as them. So if you don't see me showing up the same way as you, it's hard for you to consider me and think that I'm a possible person that you would want to work with for a campaign. And it's also easy to go with the flow and continuously overlook people. That's an easy thing to do. I remember these girls. I'm not heavy in the blogger scene, but I remember all these girls were getting invited on these Revolve trips, right? With the brand Revolve. Oh, these fabulous, fantastic trips. And a bunch of the Black bloggers were complaining that they were never getting invited and stuff. And it was this big old conversation in the community. And when you really look at it, it's because you're not the standard of beauty to Revolve as a brand. They don't look at you and see beautiful. you may be able to do numbers for them. You may be able to influence a whole group of women for them. But then if you think about it as the Black influencer who wasn't invited on that trip, do you really want to work with a brand and influence people to buy from that brand other Black women that look like you, who this brand is not even targeting and doesn't even care about?
Nope. Mm-mm.
So, I mean, I could go on, but that's my 2 cents.
Election point, y'all. My sister's singing the church, okay? Kelsey, you got to come behind that, sis.
I can follow that up.
You are not me.
I love that you're bringing it down to a basic level, because I think that I feel like it goes down so deep into not only what people think, but what they actually feel. And this has been such a hard, conversation for so many people, but for me, it's like a puzzle in my brain, right? Because I think, to me, when you say things like that, to me, I'm like, I think Black is beautiful, often more beautiful than white. And I think those things in my head, right? Like, I think I've been thinking that this whole time. And then I have to take a step back and recognize, how many conversations have you had with Black women that don't feel that way, that don't feel like other people like me actually think that? And have you understood and empathized and truly had enough conversations to feel that pain that they feel? And as a mom, I think things have been hitting home even harder for me these last couple months, because I'm watching some of my Black friends speak to their children and have the conversations about how they have to speak to their children about that. And for me, that takes it to a whole nother level of feeling like, oh my God, like that you're actually having to communicate to your daughter, you are beautiful. Like, do not listen to what they are saying. Like, you are here and you've got a big purpose. And to me, I'm just like chills with like, wow, that has to be part of the education and conversation. Imagine that. Like, imagine if I had to have that conversation with my daughter. And that's when I recognize it's so different. You know, sometimes I think like, oh, I see it as beauty and I see it as connectiveness. And, but then you recognize it's so different. It's so different. And I think that conversation not only is not really being had, but that feeling just isn't there. I think there's people in my community, or there's white people that they don't understand that. They don't, like, when I see that and I hear it, like, I am so broken. I feel so heartbroken that it makes me recognize, like, this is so far beyond what we have or haven't done. Like, you have to go so much deeper, you know?
Can I just throw this in here too, as maybe a potential practical tip for people who may watch this or are watching? In your home, like, for example, you, Kelsey, you have children. It would be the conversation that you could have with your kid or your children could be exposing them to all different nationalities, races, and the beauty in all of them. Because I can't tell you how many times I got teased as a kid for my big lips and and just my features and stuff, right? And that kind of stuff, if there's an appreciation that's taught in the home, not just my mother teaching me to appreciate me, but you teaching your kids to appreciate people who don't look like them, hair texture and everything else, so that there's nobody, kids can be cruel, right? We hear that all the time, but it affects people in their self-esteem, and they take it into adulthood, and even adults train themselves with some of these types of negative thoughts, right? So if we can start at that small level with children and teaching them to appreciate each other and the differences with each other, and instead of saying, wow, your hair looks like this, or your hair looks like cotton, or this or that, saying, wow, your hair sure is unique, I love it. You know, if kids heard more of that, then maybe it wouldn't be so much of a big jump when they become adults to appreciate the beauty in other people. Part of the reason that I wear bold red lipstick now is because I remember my own dad as a kid telling me, I put on red lipstick one time, and I wasn't a kid, you know, like teenager. And he was like, you shouldn't be wearing red lipstick. Your lips are too big. You should not be wearing red. But then I have my mom on the other hand, who's telling me when kids at school tease me, say the bigger the berry, the sweeter the juice. You know? So it's just like you have to condition kids to see the beauty in themselves, but also to see the beauty in other people. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that's one of those fundamental levels that can help combat some of the things that happen later on in life when people are identifying what's beautiful to them.
I love that. Thank you so much for saying that, because I feel like giving practical tips is so important right now, because it's so hard. We have all these feelings and we want to do things, and then all of a sudden the life happens, right? And it's like the pandemic, and I'm surviving with a toddler, but when you give tips like that, it's so helpful. Like I literally can plug that into my calendar, right? And say like, if this is a priority for you, put this on your calendar for 15 minutes every morning with your kid to do those things, So for me, that's crucial, and thanks.
Absolutely.
Kenya, I know you got to peace out on us in a little bit, so I wanted you to, comment on that, because I love that dialogue. This whole dialogue, I'm loving it.
Yeah, so I feel like that, in addition to what everybody else said, that the whole world has been conditioned of what beauty is. Right. And I know that, but we're in the conversation that we've just been conditioned that beauty looks like straight hair, fair skin, no hips, and not too much of the dips and all the things. Right. Which is why our mamas, our great grandmas, all them put all the lie on their heads to make their hair straight. Right. And why, we just didn't want to have all those big features, and so we talk about all the way back to time. And so now we're here in 2020. It's still the same thing. Now, granted, you'll see way more women on TV with straight hair, with a little bit of booty, a little bit of lips, or whatever. You'll see women that get injections, but not quite these big size, or you get like hips or whatever people do. And it's because the media and what was that guy? I think it was like the Willie Lynch letter or something like that. They put slaves against each other and all the things. And so because that has been the thing of, hey, this is pretty, this is not, then the world has, like, our grandparents, our great grandparents, and all the people have grown up with this is beautiful and this is not. And so as I think about brands, like brands are a brand, but they're still hidden by people. They're still run by people. Right. And so Revlon, CoverGirl, L'Oreal, they're run by people. And if this group of people, their whole lives have heard, this is beautiful, this is what gets on the runway, then their job, quote unquote, has been to get this on the runway. You don't bring a girl who has all the things that I got to the shoot, because we ain't gonna have nothing to fit her. Right? We may not have the right hair product for her hair. We may not have all the different things for her. And so it's like, this is easier. So it's kind of like, it's all like, if things are going to change, it's going to be the people that are making the first level decisions. Like, before, like, what is this? Like, what is going on the runway? And not just having a plus size fashion show, but it's like, no, this is what this goes on the runway, and like changing the standard of beauty. And that's a huge undertaking, and it's one that should be had, But when I think about it, I mean, I recently was reached out to a brand on TikTok because I got to like 50,000 followers, and I was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. I was like, and I looked at their page, and I was like, I don't see any Black girls on here. And I was like, I had two responses. I said, first of all, I said yes. And then second of all, I said, I don't mind being the first Black one. I will gladly be the first Black one on their page and kill it. And I did kill it. And now they are a regular, we're like in a continuous collaboration. And I was like, I will gladly be the first Black girl in all of my Black. They didn't tell me how to be or how not to be, And I'm watching brands go, okay, so we've been doing this thing wrong. You know what I mean? And I think that I think the whole world's not going to change all at one time, but I think with people like Tiffany and all the other brands out there that are going, hey, so this is what we ain't going to do. Here's what we're going to do. It's going to force some of the other ones to go, so we're going to have to get more. It's like, I think Beyonce did something. I think she was in her Adidas meeting. I think, don't quote me if I get it wrong, but she went into her Adidas meeting or something, and she was like, where are the Black people? And they didn't have anybody. And she got up and left and was like,
I think it was Rihanna.
Who was it? Rihanna?
I think it was Rihanna who did that. I heard about that.
Yeah, it was like, so we're not going to do this unless you bring us to the table, because you can't represent me like this. And people like that say, hey, this is what we're not going to do. makes the company, yes, bring in Black people for that meeting, but it also forces like, oh crap, like we hadn't even thought about it. And I think some people intentionally don't think about it, but I think other it was Ivy, the Ivy South Park. Yes.
Chanel. Oh, I heard Brianna did the same thing, so they obviously all on the same page.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Go girl.
I mean, and it's like, I think it's twofold. I think that it's one, this is your one-track mind. You've always done it this way, and nothing has caused you to break the mold. Some of it is intentional. Some of it is just, that's not, we just don't do it. We just don't do that. And it's forcing the, like, I never even thought about that. That's like, we look at Band-Aids our whole lives, our entire lives. Band-Aids all look the same.
Right.
I guarantee you, Band-Aid never thought anything was wrong.
Right.
I guarantee you, because nothing was wrong until somebody said, first of all, that brown Band-Aid don't go well on my skin. Okay? And them panties are not brown. Those are off-white. They don't work for me. You know what I mean? Until somebody said, hey, listen, this is that, and no. Then I think brands went, we hadn't even thought about it that way. And as crazy as that sounds, if you've always done things this way and you've never seen anything else or heard anything else, for some people, it's just the way that it's always been done. You know, like I talk about eating. Like my mom always said, this is how we eat. And it wasn't until I got around my non-African American friends that I realized everybody don't eat like this. And I was like, they don't? And I had to go, do I want to continue eating this way? Or does sister girl want to lose a little bit of weight? And I was like, sister girl want to get rid of the dairy because I'm having some belly issues. Mama, that macaroni and cheese is once a year. You know what I'm saying? You don't realize nothing is wrong until you keep going to your white friend house and you like, okay, this is going to sound real racist, but y'all just hear me. You know, Black people be like, white people don't season their food. They don't season their food. And don't get it twisted. Some of this stuff need a little bit of seasoning. I'm just going to keep it all in there. A little bit more than salt, honey. Lowry's, man. Lowry's. Sriracha, something. Ranch dressing, something. But anyway, but then another part of you says, wait a minute. Maybe we shouldn't use as much salt because we wouldn't have high blood pressure. You know what I mean? It's like it causes you to go, all right, okay, so wait a minute. Susie over here is looking amazing, tight, and right. Maybe we can meet in the middle. You know what I'm saying? But if you've never had to shake it up, then you just, and y'all laughing, I know exactly what I'm talking about.
What do? I know, because I've said on plenty of broadcasts that I've never experienced racism as some people have because I've been brought to the table by Susie. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been brought to the table, and I've always had really good relationships with non-Black white people. Like, I just have. But that doesn't mean I don't feel it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have a Black boy. I have a 6'2" Black son who has an attitude out of this world. Like, I'll be like, son, listen. But like Kelsey said, that not only do I have to have that conversation with my beautiful daughter, but I have to say to my handsome son, if they stop you, this is what you have to do. His dad has to have those conversations with him as well. And it's heartbreaking to have to say that to a 21-year-old boy who's like, oh, they don't get me to do whatever. No, you can't, son, listen, let me tell you, this is what's going on right now. And it's heartbreaking. And I had to do that in front of one of my white friends one time. And she said, is that every time? And I'm like, yeah. And I mean, I guess the way I was saying it was just like second nature. She was literally upset. Like, you seriously have to have this conversation, son. Make sure that you can see, they can see your hands. Say, yes, sir. And make sure you're keeping your hands still. Don't make any sudden movements. You know, if you have something in the car, if someone's in the car with you that's doing something wrong, I need you to just say what it is. And as soon as possible, get to a phone and call me. Or call me. You know, that's just life. That's just life for us. That's just and when people don't understand that, you know, sometimes we get angry, we get upset, and I'm like, well, that's just how it is. And when my son doesn't answer that phone, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? You know, what's happening with him? Like, where is he? You know, what's the deal? But that's just how it is. And, you know, there's another fear for us too. On the flip side of that is my son could do everything right and still wind up a hashtag. And it tears me up to even think about that, even if he does the right things.
Yeah.
That's the scary part.
On the other side of that.
Yeah. And it's really sad that I think as Black people, we all deal with that. You know, I shared it on the, I think it was Shalene's podcast about how one time I was in Texas and it's like, I'm driving on the road and this guy hits me, white guy hits me. And I had this split second decision of what am I going to do? What am I going to do? He's in a pickup truck. It's like, it was like seconds. And I said, it was a guy, it wasn't even the police. And I just kept my hand on the steering wheel and I was like, okay, just slowly roll down the window and just talk. And I told the guy, you hit my car. And he said, oh no, or whatever. And I had a choice. I said, okay, I could drive off and him not shoot me. I could call the police and he could say I did something wrong and they could shoot me, or just act like nothing ever happened. And I had a brand new car and I just said, don't worry about it. And I just left. Yeah. Why? Because it was at that moment, in seconds, I said, I could be a hashtag.
Is it worth it?
And I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And when I got home, it was a nice scratch on the car and I was just like, I'm good. I'm alive. And it's sad to me, like, that is kind of our reality. And people say, oh, y'all just being dramatic. Well, potentially, but not when you hear it over and over and over again.
Let's look at Sandra Bland.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, they pulled over. It's clear on camera what happened. You know what I'm saying? And you know, people are like, well, she was combative. And you know, I saw white people trying to explain why that was okay. I think that's what, you know, makes us angry sometimes too, is that some offenses, even if you go to court, are not punishable by death.
That's exactly
right.
That isn't a death penalty case, and it's not the police's job to try the case. That they don't get to decide in the street. And my husband was a cop for 10 years. Like, I know the life, I get it. I know there's danger there too, but it is. I'm hearing you guys, you know, I know all these things and I'm hearing you say them, and I'm sure Kelsey feels the same way. It's important that you keep saying them, because I have to tell you, white people who don't know Black people personally, they do think that it's drama. They do think that stuff just doesn't happen. And they can't fathom it.
Yeah.
Can't fathom that that's how people would behave. So, you know, I know I don't know, but I can imagine the emotional labor it is to recount these stories and say these things. And I am so hopeful that more people hear it and take it in for a second. I do have a teenage son, and my heart, like Kelsey was saying, it breaks. And we in this house now, raising our daughter, there are books with Black children of every color. She has Black dolls. We talk about it. We talk about, you know, even things just being a woman. Not, you know, when we put on makeup, we call it getting fancy, not getting beautiful, because it doesn't have anything to do with beauty. And I think that, you know, I know this isn't even about influencers, but you got me. I'm like,
no, we come all things, sis. We glad. I'm glad that you and Kelsey are to the table, but also my two sisters, Kenya. I mean, we're all sisters, and y'all, they're like, it's real. It's real what she said, as far as like being able to have the conversation with someone who you admire, but to say, hey, this is wrong. And thank you for standing with us. Like, I get choked up just about it. Like, it's so many people that they didn't get it.
I think there needs to be more people who call their friends out, their peers out in conversation in day-to-day life. And I know I've heard people saying that, but I just want to reiterate it again, because it's easy to be sitting at the table with somebody, see something happen or experience something, and then overlook it because let's just be honest, a lot of white women are passive aggressive.
Absolutely.
So you will be passive in that moment, but then you will be aggressive about something else. And a lot of times they're non-confrontational. And then and a lot of white women think that we are confrontational and this and that, but it's because we have to have strength. We have to stick up for ourselves. We have to say when something is not right, because if we don't, we will be walked over. We will be criticized. We will be mistreated, all the things, right? And white women are always taken up for and taken care of. And now it's time to be more than just a caretaker of your own family unit. And I'm not saying that we got to put the weight of the world on every white woman's shoulders, but it's like if you see something happening and you're a witness to something, call it out. Don't just be passive about it, because there's a lot of us who we are just as scared in those situations. When we're speaking up for ourselves, our voice may be trembling. Inside, we may be nervous as hell, thinking what's about to happen. But at the same time, in this era that we're in, we know that we must speak up for ourselves. And the one thing that I want to add real quick is what people don't realize is, just like Kenya said about getting hit on the road in Texas, what people don't realize is there are a lot of little cities across the United States that Black people know you better not show your butt up in that city, especially after dark.
Yes,
because there's not going to be anything fair about it, and the police actually may be in on it. You get pulled over, you have a flat tire, anything happens, you probably going to be in some trouble. It's probably not going to be good.
I don't not have when I moved to Texas, I was like going from Houston to Austin, and I was like, so which road should I take? And I remember, I don't know, but the white or somebody black, they said, look, don't you stop in this town between Houston and Austin.
Like,
man. What are you talking about? And they was like, don't you stop. And I'm like, I'm good. But it was daytime, and I stopped, and I went in. I was like, yep, we're going to go ahead and get right back.
What they were talking about. Yeah.
You know, and I was like a town called Magnolia, Texas or something. And I went in, and the guys, they stopped, they said, you're not from around here, are you? And I was like, nope. Have a good day. And I was like, I'm out of here.
I think that for, like with white women in particular, when when we don't speak up, for me, it's been a commitment to speak up, especially more lately. I don't know why we feel the need to make people comfortable. They're the ones that are that should be uncomfortable for what they're saying. Right. And that's the switch that has to happen in the minds of white women, is stop making them, your white friends, comfortable, and say, you don't get to say that around me. You don't get to say that around me. And you know what? I have left a party because someone used language I'm not comfortable with. And I have family that thinks I'm aggressive and over the top. Great. You know what, though? It's my privilege. I do not worry about things because of the color of my skin. I'm very, very clear on that. And I've been afforded opportunities because of the color of my skin. And there is no way at this point I'm not using that privilege every chance that I get. If I'm truly going to say I'm going to do this, it's got to be at the dinner table, like with family. I can't do it all online where it's safe and not speak up to neighbors or friends or whoever. And I think for some people, I don't even know that they realize the damage that they're doing with the things that they say.
Yeah.
And to point it out that I'm not comfortable, at least it's one less place they'll be talking about it, is my hope. But you're so right. White women have got to go further than reading a book. We can't just have book lists.
Yeah. That's why I'm so thankful for things like social media and Karen.
I don't even know that they realize the damage that they're doing with the things that they say.
Somebody's Facebook.
Point it out that I'm not comfortable. I'm hearing myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry, that was me. Sorry. I tried to expand.
I like you, go girl. Say it again. Say it again.
Right.
One more time for the people in the back.
Yeah. But no, I was saying I'm so thankful for social media and Karen. Like, they started the Karen on, I think it was TikTok first. And it just used to be this thing called Karen. The Karen was the lady who always asking for the manager, right? That was just what they did on TikTok at first. And then Karen now became Karen, racist Karen. And so there's all the Karens now. And so like we're talking about all the different things that have happened, have gotten filmed and put on video. And then, and like with people dying and all that, but then all the Karens in the store. And now you've got white women and white men going, I do not want to be a Karen. And it's like as funny as Karen is, it's also going, did that white lady just say, did that person just say, did they just say, and it's caught on camera. But it's like, if people are honest, some of them are probably seeing themselves, I am Karen, right? Like that was that one lady, the lady with the beauty company that got caught telling
San Francisco.
Yes, because I think he had painted Black Lives Matter on his board.
On his own property.
Yeah, and her and her husband went up to him, and she's just like, we know who live here, and yada, 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 yada. And he goes, oh, okay. And he actually was the one that lived there. And so here she comes, like, now she's Karen. And it's like, and all the world is going, like, it's not just seeing the Black person die, somebody's Facebook, but it's also everybody going, I have thought the same things. I have thought the same things. I am her. I am he. Now you cannot get away from it. Like if you go on Facebook, you're going to see a Karen at least once a day.
And she probably considers herself a liberal white woman.
Yeah.
If you ask her, she will tell you that she's a liberal Democrat white woman, which is more dangerous because it's like hidden, right? Like,
oh, I donated to United Negro College Fund. Or I got that one Black friend. It's like, oh, you know, yeah, totally. But what would you do if your white blonde young lady brings home this big Black dude? Right? And I pose that same question to my Black friends. I said, how will you be when your tall 4.0 son bring home this white girl? How you gonna be? And they're like, what? It's like, oh, so we gotta, everybody gotta go, ooh, I
got a little touch of it.
Yeah, we bring this girl home from India that has this accent. It's like, you know, everybody gets to go, ooh,
right?
You know? For real. I mean, it's funny, but it's like all of us.
Real.
Well, I don't want to be a Karen either.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to jump in and Kina, you're so good at this. You talk about so much of like meeting in the middle, like so much of taking a step back and going, like, how would that make me feel? And that for me has like brought on such a sense of empowerment. Because I think that there is, and Ayana, you kind of inspired this for me and wanting to give a couple practical tips, like for if there's any white women out there listening and wondering how would they ever have that conversation with somebody? Because I think that is, it's not just, hey, you need to have the conversation. It's meeting those people and saying, I know this is uncomfortable. Like, I know it's not comfortable. None of us want to have it, and not force them and say, but you have to do it. It's giving them the tools to do it. It's saying, here's a myriad of ways that you could do it. And I've just been like soul searching myself because I'm not really an outspoken person. I'm an absolute introvert. I'm not someone that's going to come and stand up at the front of the table and call somebody out, unless I've had a couple cocktails, and then I probably will. But what works for me really well is if someone says something that's passive aggressively racist, right? Like it's not outwardly racist. They would never consider themselves a racist, but maybe it's a liberal person, right? That says something that is passively aggressive racist. For me, my job is then to stop, like, right. And to say, oh, hey, hold on a second. Tell me a little bit more about what you just said. Like, let me understand a little bit more about what that means for you and where you're coming from, and understand what their experience has been. And for me, that's been a key, like, pivotal point, because I started in the very beginning when all this started happening a few months ago. I was a little too aggressive because I was so passionate, right? I was so passionate, and I was so mad. I was so mad that we had let this happen. I was so mad that there was conversations being pointed at the rioting, when I'm like, why are we pointing there? Why aren't we having the bigger conversation about how did we get there? Like, I was so angry that I was starting to call people out. And what I realized was people were just saying, okay, bye. Oh, okay, you have your conversation over there, Kelsey. Like, I'm going to go over here with people that I feel comfortable with. And I recognize that, like, oh, I'm not doing what I can do. The power that I have is to open up that conversation and to say, hey, I want you to come to the table and I want us to understand where you're coming from. And I think for me, then I can get a little bit further in that conversation and I can really move the needle more, which is ultimately the end goal, you know? So I just feel like I wanted to give a couple tangible tips if there's any white people out there that are trying to understand, like, I feel scared to have this conversation. Like, how can you do it in a really empathetic, kind way and move the needle? You can stop the conversation. You cannot let it pass. You cannot just sit there quietly and you can say, oh, hey, hold on. You just said something right there. Tell me more about that. Like, just tell me what you meant by that. Like, let's get into that, right? And you don't want someone to feel defensive right away. You don't want someone to shut down. You want to open them, right? Like, you want to call them in to say, let's move forward together. You know, like, not like, hey, we're going to shut you out because you're a horrible human. Just like, let's come in and crack that open a little bit, because I think we can have some growth there, you know?
Yeah,
I think that's perfect. I love that. And I also want to say too, I was getting, questions or statements of, well, how did this happen? I mean, how long has this been going on? And I'm saying to myself, like, where you been? Because Rodney King asked me years ago, like, where have you been? This has been going on. But I think, Reverend Al Sharpton said something at George Floyd's funeral that will forever sit with me. He said, to white America, he was like, what you saw was only happened. You only saw it this time because of COVID, because you couldn't go nowhere. And there was nothing to do but watch the TV. I'm just summarizing what he actually said, but he was just like, this has been going on from out to healing. He just started naming them off. He said, but the difference this time was no one could go anywhere. Everyone was at home doing what? Watching TV. And so what you saw was a live murder on TV. And now everybody's appalled. And, I know he meant well. He was angry. He was upset, but his thing was, okay, you only saw it this time because you were at home. This has happened so many other times and you missed it.
Yeah, that's a lot of the conversations I have with a lot of my white friends, that the ones that actually reached out. Majority of them didn't say anything, right? But those that reached out, they all went for like, well, we don't understand. And I'm like, I told them, I said, the only reason why you're seeing it is because you were at home. I'm like, but we as Black people know that if you type #justice4, you're gonna come up with a couple hundred hashtags, a couple hundred names. So we see it all the time. Like, but you're tuned into this station, and this station isn't talking about what's happening to this group of people. So the more that I kind of had those conversations with my white friends, it's like they started going down this journey and just having this like, oh my God, I chose not to see. One was a pastor, and he was just like, I chose not to see. I chose to believe that you guys were lying, that you guys were being dramatic, and that was Mike Brown deserved to die, and Trayvon Martin deserved to die, and I chose to believe that they deserved to die. And then they finally go, nobody deserves to die, period.
Right.
And it's like, and this is, it sounds really bad, but I'm thankful for COVID in that regard, because people were stuck in and forced to see. I wish that nobody would die from COVID and nobody would die from anybody being murdered. But it's just like, because of all that happened, it's like the entire world was awakened. And if you look at what happened all over the world, there were riots and protests in every country.
Every country, yes.
People were not, because people said, we see, we stand, it's going down. And that's why they're still rioting in Louisville. And it's just because,
It didn't stop. So Tronika wants you to respond to Kelsey, her perspective on what she shared.
On coming at people kind of softly.
Probably, I would assume.
Probably so.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I am the person that shouts at the front of the room.
I knew that.
So I think for me, I've had the conversation both ways. I try to get a real quick gut check on what's happening. If someone's outright using inflammatory language, it's just a no for me. I haven't found any success in talking people down from that. I've more drawn a line in the sand that this isn't cool with me. You can't do this in my home. I'm not staying in your home. I feel like I have had some conversations, especially with people around the All Lives Matter statement, where I have been able to get them to see that they may be rethinking that statement and seeing that this has nothing to do with any other life being less.
Yeah.
I have been able to have those conversations. I think it really depends on the situation. I hope that that response makes sense. There are absolutely times for me where, I mean, I will stop in the middle of the store and be like, what did you just say? That's not happening here. No.
Right.
Getting in between a situation or something like that. But I think it depends on the people. We are dealing with some people who the thought of Black men and women rising to success is somehow taking away their success.
Yeah.
And that is not what's happening, but they're so deeply ingrained. I mean, it's interesting because you said, somebody said, how long has this been going on? You were like, well, Rodney King. I'm like, well, slavery. I mean, like, there's been no break.
Yeah.
We didn't have a break. It just changed and evolved how we were enslaving people, right?
Right.
That's all that's happened is it's an evolution of how the enslavement is happening. So, I mean, for me, could there be people that I could have turned them around had I not been abrupt? Maybe. One woman came on my Facebook page and said, well, I get that George Floyd was safe because there was no, white people can get behind it and say it was wrong.
Yeah.
There were no extenuating circumstances. He didn't try to avoid arrest. So that's why we feel comfortable saying, oh, it should have never happened. The trickier ones, right? Where there was a running or something. People say, no.
One in Atlanta. Yeah, where he was sleeping in his car and everything. People will make up excuses for that. Like, well, he shouldn't have been that.
This was so black and white.
Yes.
That it felt like people could get behind it. But I think that she came to my page, well, what about the writing? And I was like, why don't you ask the people that dumped $17 million of tea into the Boston Harbor for your freedom? Because this country was founded on civil disobedience and rioting. But just because it's not benefiting you now doesn't mean that you shouldn't be part of it and that you shouldn't be. If we're truly going to live up to the forefathers, I've seen women say, oh, well, I don't know what this marching is about. It's so ridiculous. And I'm like, you do realize you did not have the right to vote until someone marched and starved and had their children taken from them. Just because you now have your rights, it just ends. I don't understand. Like until and this isn't a political issue. This is a human rights issue. And people trying to mask it as stop being political, that is a passive aggressive way to try to get us to be quiet because it's not political. There's nothing political about somebody's life being of value.
Right.
Jimmy, you're the president.
I
We like, come on.
I have misbehaved too many times to even consider something.
Wait a minute. Let's look at all the presidents.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Kenya, like,
was it JFK? Was it America's president? JFK got a list long.
I don't have a penis, so I am not held to that standard.
What'd you say?
I don't have a penis, so those don't apply to me because I don't get a pass in that sense.
Right. That's like they all. I mean, like black people be like, "Oh, Barack Obama's the best president." I'm like, we just ain't seen his rap sheet yet. That's all. They all got a sheet. All of them. Some of them long enough.
Hidden. So I love that. So let's talk about how we should be approaching those conversations, not just about brands, because I'm just loving this conversation we having right here. Mine is, the brands. I think my sister Yana, she didn't preach that collection plate pass. She didn't tell them, boo, it started with you at the house. But how do we just bring those conversations about? Because let me say this: some of my friends, like, the ones that is from the hood, they're like, you just need to just let them know what it is. And I'm like, no, we can't have that approach. You cannot talk to people that way, especially people who don't understand.
Yeah.
When you don't understand, I can't come at you like, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
from good. I can't do that. I can't come at you like Kiki. I have to come at you like somebody who's intelligent, who knows what it is, and I have to meet you where you are.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
I think Tiffany touched on it in that you can't approach every person the same way, but also the way that I look at it too is you have to feel somebody out and sort of see where they're coming from, because some people are just too far gone in their ignorance.
Yeah.
It's not worth your time. They are ignorant. They are surrounded by ignorance. They want to live and breed and continue just swimming in all of this ignorance. And you will be unnecessarily getting yourself extremely frustrated. Your blood pressure be going all up. And they will be calm and ignorant still. So I think you have to figure out, you have to see if, and I think that's why I liked Kelsey's advice where she said, or her solution or practical advice where she's saying, tell me more about that.
Hello.
And you know what me and my cousin call that, Kelsey? That's when you put your good white woman on. When you put your good white woman on is when you say, tell me more. Because I know what you mean. What you mean is, I'm about to
make you say it.
But I'm gonna make you say it. I'm about to get you, but I'm gonna let you walk right into this. Step into it a little bit deeper, right?
Yeah, we're gonna call a spade here. So let's stop the conversation. We're not gonna keep rolling. We're gonna stop and then now say it.
So I think it's just a matter of assessing where people are. Some people, you can have the conversations that are difficult because they're open to it. But I think some people, you have to know what conversations you can have with them. And also maybe when you need to have bits and pieces of a conversation here, leave it there for a second, bookmark it, and then come back another time and pick up on another part of a conversation. Because the other thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to try and force feed something so much down somebody's neck that they're resentful of the things that you're saying and they just don't want to hear you. Because as my dad saying, they being obtuse, they just don't want to listen to reason. That's what you don't want to do either. So I think you have to kind of feel out where the person is and also how they show up in your life. If there's somebody important to you, then you decide, how important is it for me to maintain this relationship? And you assess that relationship before you decide about the conversation and where you're going to kind of take the conversation.
Right.
Yeah. And I would say that I've done a lot of like one-on-one conversations. Like I watched a friend of mine from high school. He said some racist stuff and he used like the Bible to back it up.
Oh, not the Bible.
Yeah. Before George Floyd. And I
do that.
Tear him to shreds. I mean, they like screenshot me all this stuff, and I inboxed him, and I just said, "Hey, you consider you and I friends, right?" He goes, "Yeah," and I said, "Well, can I give you some feedback?" And he said, "Yeah," and I was like, "So I want to give you feedback based upon what you posted." He said, "Okay," and I told him how what he said made me feel, and I was like, "This is what you said. This is what I heard you say." But I feel like this is what you're trying to say. But this message you're trying to convey is not exactly what's coming across, especially to a Black person, because he was so angry about people kneeling with for the national anthem because he just couldn't understand. And so, but as a Black person, I made sure that we were in good relationship first. And once we established that, I then said how I said. And he was like, "Oh my God, I did not know that this isn't this." And I was like, "I get it." I was like, "So just in the future, if you want to express your opinion, feel free to do that. But don't use the Bible with that, because that's actually not what the Bible says and what the Bible means. And you're messing up your own witness or whatever." In addition to that, like just with people in general, I've kind of like just reached out to people individually. So there's a lady who she interviewed me her podcast talking about TikTok, because everybody knows I'm the TikTok girl. And as a result, all these people started inboxing me that she's racist, she's this and this and all this stuff. And I just kind of went to them and was like, well, I don't know her as a racist. I can't call her a racist. I can't even call President Trump a racist. I can say that they got some tendencies, right? Some of the things that they be doing. But I won't label anybody, because I just don't feel like Jesus would do that. And so I was like, I won't do that. And so I had the whole conversation with the person in my inbox. But then I inboxed that person and said, "Hey, so I'm not sure if you're interested in this, but here's what's happening in my inbox with the people that are on your page. And this is what I said to them about you. But if you're open, I would love to come onto your Instagram and talk about racism and, and all the things and where you stand. And a person said, yes, they gave me a complete takeover for their Instagram. And I taught like to 90% white people about racism and answering all these hard questions. And then when the person was trying to thrash that person, I basically went at that person, was like, hey, so you don't really know this person. You cannot say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and this person white. So this person is awakened and they get to go on this journey and you get to let them. If you don't want to let them go on that journey, unfollow them, but stop acting cool, But intentionally, I knew that this person hadn't said anything publicly about stuff and they were thrashing her. So I said, okay, let me defend her privately and then let me tell her what is happening and give her an opportunity for me to be on. Now, this was not Shalene. I mean, I did a broadcast for Shalene Johnson. I had to clear that up real quick. It wasn't her. And people have allowed me to go on, like where they're interviewing me or taking over pages and stuff, because it's like, you can educate people privately. You can have a lot of private conversations. And I think that that's very necessary. I think that just asking a person, hey, can I give you some feedback? Or I saw that you posted All Lives Matter. Can we talk about that? Can I say how that makes me feel as a Black person if we have some kind of relational equity? If we have a little bit of it, then I can come in and ask. If we have no relational equity, then I have nothing I can say to them, Now, sometimes people will post crazy stuff on social media and we're not really close. And I would comment and say, hey, ouch, that kind of hurts. And then they will come to my box and go, what happened? What did I say?
Yeah.
That then opens up the conversation of things, because I know that the only way our world's going to change is one person at a time. Because one person, and then they talk to their husband or wife, then they talk to their kids, and then their mama and their dad. It's like I was talking to a guy the other day, and he was talking about how, I think it was Creflo Dollar did a talk at this white Baptist something or whatever over the weekend. And Creflo went at it and he used the Bible and he like really taught, and all these people had this awakening. And his mama watched it. And he said, Mama, did you see that? And she was like, oh my God. She realized that she had some tendencies. And so he then called her mama and was like, Mom, did you watch? And they knew that the grandma was pure D racist, right? And the grandmama was like, and she had her own, like, because the way Creflo talked about it in a way where people of all backgrounds could receive what was being said. Because he used scripture at first about something totally different and then brought it back around to racism, and it made everybody go, and so you kind of use your influence in a way that can be digested best. And some of that's through public conversation and a lot of it's through private. And it's just, I don't try to do it with everybody. I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, I want to da-da-da-da. And I'm going to go, well, tell me, where do you stand on this first? If I don't know them like that. And if they're all the way on this side, I will go, hey, so I'm open to have a one-on-one with you first, because otherwise it's going to be a bloodbath and I'm going to win. And I don't want to embarrass you in front of your people, because everybody know how I am. Like, they know, like, and I'm like, I don't want to embarrass you in front of your people, because I'm going to come to you with it. They go, oh, I'm like, so be ready for one-on-one. We can do that. But in front of everybody, it's a massacre. And I'm already one, because I that's going to talk about it all,
Right. So. You do have to be careful with that. Kelsey, what about you? I mean, you shared some tips, but I mean, seriously, like, how do you start that? Because you say you're introvert, but your podcast be banging, girl.
That's because I'm in my closet with my little microphone, just having like a one-on-one conversation with myself. For me, I've been thinking about the way to have that conversation. And I loved what Tiffany said. I think you really do have to decide, like, what is the right way that you can do it for yourself and your own personality. And what your values are, I'm personally in this fight, right? Like, I'm in it, like 110%. Like, it's like every morning I wake up and I have a Google Doc. And if I haven't learned something or I haven't given some attention to it every morning, then I'm not doing what I feel comfortable with, like, to stay in it, right? So, but that's me. Like, there are other people that are in a different part of that journey that they have to figure that out, right? Like, how much are they going to lean into this? And I see my opportunity is taking people that are close, you know, like, and opening that conversation. And the best way that I've seen to do that is to make sure that I'm not making them feel defensive right away, you know, because the second people feel defensive, they don't feel like you're on their team anymore. They feel like you're talking at them instead of welcoming them into the conversation to be like, hey, let me know how you feel. This is how I feel. This is my experience. Hey, and a lot of times when you do that, you want the same things, right? Like they honestly just, you know, kind of like Tiffany was saying, they don't have Black friends, right? Like they aren't listening to those conversations. Their heart isn't breaking because they're not seeing what is actually happening. And I think it's my job as someone who can maybe potentially have both of those conversations in that community. Like I think, Kenya, what you're doing is so amazing and opening up those conversations and having them one-on-one. But I would almost say it's even more of my responsibility to do that with the white privilege that I have, you know, and with the trauma that I have not had to go through. So I take that on as my responsibility. And that's just what I want to be part of. That's the future that I want for my little girls. I want them to see that, and I want them to be part of that. I want, you know, like those are really important things to me. So I think people have to search their hearts and figure out, is this important to you? And if it is, figure out what dialogue feels good to you, but know that part of moving this forward is having a voice. Like you can no longer stay silent because you are literally you're choosing the other side. You are furthering this agenda that you really want to, you want to stop and you want to reverse. So you do have to have a voice, but figure out what that voice is for you. It may not be standing up. It may not be publicly doing something, but you better be having that conversation and finding a way that feels comfortable for you to move the needle. Like, and that's the ultimate goal, right? It's not just so you can say it. It's not just so you can yell it. It's so that you can move the needle. Like, how are we going to move the needle? And it's multifaceted, right? So for me, if I'm just educating myself on the difference between equality and equity, that's great. But what am I doing with my local elections, right? What am I doing with my dollars? Like, what am I doing with my children? Like, for me, it has to be like a multi-pronged approach. So I think that's just what we have to start thinking about. We have to ask ourselves those questions and look at our calendar every day and say, what is on my calendar today? What have I done today to further that, if that's really important to me, you know?
And I think to be prepared to lose something. If you're truly doing the work, the relationships are going to be lost. And you know what? So is money in different ways. As you know, for us as a company, we understand that if we have to walk from a client who isn't willing to accept the diversity and equity standards we put into place, but it's such a small loss compared to what my people that I love that are Black are losing. And it's a tiny loss. And so I think that has been a piece of reconciling within myself. And I know other white friends of mine, of realizing like, this doesn't come at no cost. And if it's true work, if it's true work that is moving the needle, you're so right. And because otherwise it's performative. And we've seen, we're really seeing that, right? We're really looking back to 2 weeks ago and realizing what was performative and what is staying the course. And performative is almost more dangerous than not saying anything.
Absolutely.
You know? And so I think that Kelsey's so right on. Moving that needle is different for everybody. And all of us have different roles to play in how that needle gets moved. And just because you don't think it's enough, that one conversation, that, you know, that one time of seeing somebody, you know, in the store getting harassed and just walking over and not even just saying to the other things, talking to the other person, but saying, hey, Michelle, how are you? And to keep walking with them, to move them out of the situation. Those small, tiny actions are what matter. I just want to see a lot of people that jumped on the bandwagon, ordered the books and did all the things. Start, like you said, Kelsey, your local elections. Calling Brianna. Like these things every day. How, you know, I'm sending the email again today. I'm making the phone call again today. And the money. I mean, for me, that has been a big thing. I need to talk with my dollars, whether that's buying from Black businesses or supporting campaigns or politicians that have an agenda where Black lives are important and do matter, those things add up, you know, sponsoring people and making sure that children have access to the education that they deserve to have. And, you know, we know that that's one of the biggest places that racism is systemic in our society is education, healthcare, Black mothers dying during childbirth at a rate that is unacceptable and not being believed about symptoms because they're viewed as being stronger than a white woman. You know, these are things that people aren't talking about, what, you know, that we need to keep the conversation going. And I also do think that sometimes people that aren't as open to the conversation about police brutality might be open to the conversation about racism in medical care for Black women. Maybe we start there, you know, we start the conversation that way, because there are, our society is riddled with it. It's everywhere.
Meet people where they are.
Yeah, and I just want to tackle on top of that, Tiffany. I really loved how you brought up the sacrifice. Like it's going to take sacrifice, and I think that for me has been a big conversation I've been having with people lately that feel that they are anti-racist, and I'm trying to have the conversation of, are you willing to sacrifice for it though? Like for me, when I get asked to speak at places, like, are you willing to go and to say, what does the lineup look like? I would like to give up my spot for someone else. You know, like I would, that's a sacrifice that we're going to have to take. Like people that are in these executive positions at, you know, big Fortune 500s, like, yes, you are going to, one of you is not going to get that promotion because you are making the choice to sacrifice that to further move something ahead that has been behind the 8 ball for so many hundreds of years. And it's not going to move. That needle's not going to move unless we choose and we openly say, I recognize I'm going to have to sacrifice, and I'm willing to do that for these next few generations to get this back, like to be proud of what we've created and to take care of our humans, you know, like that's just, I think that's what we have to take on as white people. Like that's part of this fight, you know?
Right. That's so true. I know when I first decided to even start this, it just was weighing heavily on me. Like, what am I doing as a Black person? Like, what am I doing with the influence that I have, you know, with different groups of people? And I just started like thinking of like, what could I do, you know? And for me, it was just like disrupting the norm. Like, this is not okay for either side, because as Kenya just said, there's racism within our own communities with each other. Oh, well, you're lighter than me, you know, so you think you're better than me, you know, colorism, all of those things that we too have to, you know, tackle within ourselves. But I can recall when I first was like, when you talked about the performance thing, Tiffany, I was like, oh, I'm about to retreat real fast. I shared the post where the white lady and her husband painted over the Black Lives Matter in the street. I think it was in some city in California where they painted
Sacramento,
over.
I think, or no, not Sacramento. Yeah, it was in a city in California.
Was it in California? I think
it was. One of the first ones, because I think there were other ones that happened. Yeah,
that was the first one. I shared that and I wrote a caption, and it got like over 100,000 shares, and people were coming at me, and I was just like, whoa. Now, I don't back down from a fight. I don't. I think about people I work with, like Tiffany, where I work with brands, and what will people think? And I remember talking to my aunt and her sharing all of her great wisdom about, you have to stand up. Jesus stood up for things. You know, there were people in the Bible that stood up for things, that lost their lives about things. So you have to stand up. If a brand don't want you because you're standing up, oh well. If you got clients that don't want you to do their events anymore because you stand up, then fine. If someone doesn't want to be on your podcast or on your blog because of that, then fine. What are you willing to sacrifice? Like Kelsey said, for the greater good, for people to see that we're just not talking about the issues. We want to come to the table with solutions. We want to talk about things that will help move the needle, as Kelsey said, so that everyone can see, you know, what this is, and that eventually, hopefully, the hashtag stop. You know, unless there's some good hashtags. You know, like besides names, because you know when people bring up stuff that don't make sense to me or that doesn't mean anything, I say to them, "Well, you know, the killers of Breonna Taylor still free. Now, can we talk about that?" And then give me this look like, you know, people talking about the riots and this and that and blah blah blah, and I was like, yeah, and they was dropping off, you know, pallets of bricks where people were rioting. Well, who brought the bricks there? Like, can we talk about that? Oh, and by the way, the killers of Breonna Taylor still free. They flee. They don't want to. They don't want to talk about. You know, they don't want to talk about that. So I think that y'all gave some really, really great tips. Beautiful women to start this conversation with. I mean, this was just amazing. I totally enjoyed all of y'all. So people want y'all info. So I'm gonna start with you, Tiffany. How can we get connected with you?
I spend most of my time on Instagram, which is at Tiffany ROM, Tiffany Rom, and I am a huge TikTok fan. I don't do anything on it, but I think TikTok is the best content out there right now. And it's funny, people think I don't even see teenage girls dancing because the algorithm gets to know you so fast.
Yeah.
I see social justice. I see women my age. So anyway, big shout out to Kenya for the TikTok. But that's really where to find me. I mean, obviously, if you're an influencer and you're interested in working, swaygroup.com or Massive Sway is where you fill out a profile. And that's what I do. I started as a community for bloggers back in 2008, and it turned into this. And I am also a speaker. I speak about how to scale your business. We've gone from a couple of women to 30 employees, and how do you do health insurance, and how do you do all these things while keeping your sanity? How do you, don't hire your sister-in-law, like really funny things like that. Continue to have sex with your partner. Those things I find very helpful. But that's where I'll be, mostly Instagram. And it's mostly just pictures of my cute daughter. My stories, I talk a lot about racial justice and social justice, but in my feed, it's mostly that little blonde girl.
Yeah, she's gorgeous too. Oh my gosh. Y'all definitely need to sign up with Sway. I'm telling you, the best deals out there.
I'm signing up in 5 minutes. I'm like, ain't no fool.
TikTok queen, because I'm gonna have to call you, sis. You're gonna have to help me get TikTok together because everybody keep telling me, girl, you need to be on TikTok. So I finally signed up. And guess who I see first on TikTok?
I put it down, honey. 8 posts a day, honey. You hear me? I ain't kidding. I'm doing about 2 of them before I leave here today. I got 53,000 followers in 3 months.
Yes, I'm like, oh my gosh. So tell folks how they can get connected with you.
Yeah, so everything is all things Kenya Kelly. So Instagram, Kenya Kelly. Facebook, Periscope, if that's still around, Kenya Kelly. We're relaunching my personal brand website tomorrow. So that's KenyaKelly.com. So TikTok, everything Kenya Kelly.
Cool. Yeah, if y'all not on TikTok, yeah. I think you posted something, Kenya, and I was like, I'm on TikTok. And you was like, if you ain't on TikTok, you need to get on TikTok. I said, okay, here I go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just from a business standpoint, people are coming in for entertainment, but like it's insane what is happening. Netflix found me on TikTok for a dating campaign. Like it's crazy what's happening over there. It just seems like entertainment, but it's amazing.
Wow. Okay, yeah, we're gonna have to talk. I'm gonna have to, yeah, we're gonna have to do that.
I love it. You guys can find me at Kelsey Murphy on Instagram. Like I said, I'm a bit of an introvert. So if you want to chat, come into my DMs and come say hello to me. I'm really good one-on-one. But that's probably the best place to find me. And then I do host the Whiskey and Work podcast. So you can find that wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yes, right. Great content. Great content. Wait, don't you gotta put that luncheon soon? Oh, that has already launched.
Oh yeah, no. I teach people how to start their own podcast. Yeah, and I have something launching this week. We're gonna do a big podcast with Soul course and program where I'm gonna take people through. I'm gonna help them launch and monetize their podcast. So if you're interested,
put your plug in there.
I know. I'm like,
I'm on the email list, so I know.
I love it.
Okay, Miss Ayana Angel.
Okay, so everybody can find me on Instagram. I'm like Tiffany. That's where I hang out most. It's just Ayana.angel. I go live and talk my talk, talk my ish. So if you think you might be feeling my vibe, then come hang out. I'm also on, I also have my website, AyanaAngel.com. And that's just all, no periods in there. And then you guys can also check out MaisyMedia.com, where I have different podcasts that you can browse through and feel free to listen to. And then, like I said, I'm the host of the Switch, Pivot, or Quit podcast. So if you're in that life transition, then you go ahead and listen to Switch, Pivot, or Quit. And then one more thing, I also have a book called Quit Playing Small, which is great for your morning routines. If anybody has a morning routine, it's little quick tidbits. I think you picked up on my vibe if you've watched any of this video. So it's kind of like that big sister, homegirl that's like, get it together. You need to do this today. Or don't forget that you're amazing. So it has that vibe. So if you're interested in that, you can pick that up on Amazon. Quit Playing Small.
Yes. I'm going to get that. Miss Kenya, somebody got a question for you.
You popped that back up. I saw it, but I want to read it again. Kenya, do you have thoughts about the recent highlighting of TikTok being a forum for blackface and appropriation of Black culture? I read an article last night. I had no idea. So, one, I don't know nothing about that.
Okay. I was thinking,
that's my first thought about that. Two, I could see how people could say that with like there being a large portion of people that are on the TikTok platform are non-people of color. Right. And people are dancing to all the different types of music with, all the things. So my other thought behind that is because I had no idea about all that and the way that I kind of look as a business. This is not me as a Black person. This is me as a business. I'm like, okay, I don't know what they doing, but what I'm about to do is get on here and get this money. Right. I'm like, if they are wanting to hear acting a fool, doing whatever they want to do, they gonna go and do what they gonna do. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build my business and build my brand, right? And let Netflix, all the other come for me. Yeah. Right. So So people are saying, well, we don't want to get on TikTok because of X. And I'm like, well, they can do that, right? Or we can get on there and you can dominate for yourself. You know what I mean? Right. Because like the truth is that, that people love Black culture. People love, the things with Black people or whatever, and all races. So it's not just us, and so because of that, and because dancing and the music and all the type of stuff is kind of, I could see how people would do more of that. But I'm like, I can't worry about them. I am like that little girl with a seatbelt. Worry about yourself, right? I'm gonna get on that app. And I'm going to go and worry about myself. And if they want to act a fool, do blackface, all the things, everybody going to call them out. They're going to be the Karens of TikTok. And they're going to be 16-year-old Karen, 25-year-old Karens, blackface Karens. They going to go be the Karens. Kenya Kelly is going to be on there being Kenya Kelly and get all the money. So that's what I would say.
I don't blame you. It's about getting this money.
Oh, so my Snoop Dogg. So look, Chanel, the truth is, it sounds real bad. I don't be watching people's stuff. Like the teen, I don't see them. All the thing I see on my page are women 30 and over because TikTok algorithm, I've said, this is who I want to see and this is who I want to talk to. Black Lives Matter and women over 30. So all the other stuff, I don't even be seeing. I just be scrolling. One, I got a whole business that I'm building. See that book back there? That's my book. I'm business. And what they on there doing, I'm gonna let the rest of them get them. They gonna get them. Like they got a song in there that's called Go. And it's like, and people are standing in front of people's racist profiles saying, racist, go, who's next? And they call people out. People's accounts getting shut down, all the things. And so I'm like, they gonna get them, and I'm gonna be like, go while I'm doing it.
While your bank account is filling up with them coins because folks are seeing you on there. Yeah.
That's my focus. I'm like, that ain't my lane. God ain't giving me that justice lane.
Right.
And I ain't gonna walk over to it. I'm in the mountain of business and entertainment, and that's what I'm on.
I love it. I love it. And it seems like everybody been loving us. I got inboxes of, oh my gosh, they real. Oh my gosh, y'all should do a summit. I don't know what kind of summit we could do, but I'm the event planner. I'll put something together.
I think what's so fascinating to people is probably that we're having a conversation that isn't in a vacuum of either all white women or all Black women.
Right.
And that is, I think, so it feels so different, you know.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
And it's good. It's not like
It's good.
Yeah, and they're loving it. So I'm just like, I had my Facebook open. I closed it because I think I was echoing too. But I'm looking at the inboxes of people like, oh my gosh, thank you. Oh my gosh, I love them. Y'all need to do a summit. Y'all need to do it. I'm like,
Well, thanks them.
yes, we can put something together. But I certainly appreciate you, ladies. I love you all. I think that it's amazing that you all are willing to step up to the plate. Because again, Kenya, you made a good point of sometimes we be worried about the wrong things sometimes, when it comes to this. And I think you said that as well, Ayana. You said the same thing. Like, we got to focus on the folks who want to hear, who want to have these conversations. And then we let our friends like Tiffany and Kelsey deal with the rest to help us get to where we're all, one, and we can keep these conversations. So it don't stop with me, ladies. I am totally appreciative. We will definitely have to do something again. Definitely. Next week, we're going to be talking racism in HR in the workplace. So I got some HR professionals coming on to talk about what that looks like. Affirmative action, all of those things. So these conversations won't stop for me. As God continues to download who I need to bring on, I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to stop, and I won't be fearful of the backlash, as they call it.
Thanks for setting this up.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
This was so much fun. So thank y'all for joining me.
Thank you, guys. Bye.